Well, hello there, fellow kids. How do you do? Last time stuff happened, it wasn't good. And this chapter, if I remember correctly, is just like the aftermath of what that is all about. And yeah, I don't really know. I mean, it's like it. Last episode was just such a heavy note to leave things on, and I think we're just gonna jump like straight into it because I don't. Yeah. What the fuck is there to talk about? Like, yeah, let's do that.
Zach, let's get back to the hotel. First Anna, then Becky, now Diane. I'm not looking forward to writing this investigation report.
Agent Morgan. York. Do you have a moment?
And yeah, it was as I predicted. It was pretty much just like the aftermath of what happened at the art gallery. We pick up at the police station. Nick has been put in jail, and I think everyone's sort of like gonna go take a breather and then figure out what they're gonna do in the morning. Thomas is gonna stay and guard Nick in the jail, and Thomas there's like this heavy implication that he's not really up for it, but that he's the only one that like can do it. He's the only one that's available because the others, they need to go get some rest. I mean, they've been through some insane fucking shit and they need to clear their heads and come back in the morning. So Thomas, he just got to bite the bullet and be this assertive man for once that he's not really comfortable with being.
There's something I'd like to talk to you about. Do you have any time later?
And what happens is that, like, the whole team is about to leave, and then George is like, York, we should go get fucking sloshed. And then York's like, hell yeah, bro. So they go to the Galaxy of Terror, the bar that Thomas and Carol own together, or rather, Carol owns it and Thomas just helps out.
Hey, Carol. Becky is dead. Diane, too. We've got Nick in custody as a suspect.
At the bar, we actually meet Carol, and she's very mad that Thomas is guarding the jail because she really feels for him. But
Nick didn't do it.
On the other hand, she also says that Nick didn't do it, so I don't know, like, why she's mad that Thomas is locked up, that Thomas is spending time with a murderer when she don't think that Nick is the murderer.
Carol, you took a locket from Diane, didn't you? A locket with this mark on it.
I'm busy, gotta go.
During our time at the bar, we have some real talk with George, and he tells the story of his scars. His dad left him and his mom when he was very young, and his mom was clearly like very unhinged, and she used to punish George for like the tiniest fucking things after his father left.
Please, Mama. I won't do it again. That hurts, Mama. I'm sorry, please. I'm sorry.
She called this the tree punishment, and she would whip him with the tree branch. And George was psychologically tortured his entire childhood, and he would actually, after getting beaten with these tree branches, go and apologize to the woods because his mother said that she had offended the woods when he did the tiniest things wrong. Like if he didn't eat fast enough and if he didn't clean up after dinner, he would get punished. And that's why he has the scars.
York, I'm sorry. I'll follow your orders from now on. You'll have my total cooperation.
George, you've been as cooperative as you can be. You even invited an FBI guy to a bar for drinks. You've done a good job protecting this town.
After we talk to George, there is a musical number by Carol, and then As both York and George are about to head off, Emily shows up and
Sorry to keep you waiting, boys.
Zack, Emily is already a goddess of the forest.
Let's forget work for a bit and drink a little, shall we?
that's a good ass dress that she's wearing. George, he gets the hint and he pops off, and then York and Emily finally get to like spend some good private time together, and they have a really good conversation where York actually tells Emily about what the deal is with his Mr. Zack, and he tells Emily that his father actually killed his mother, and that he watched it happen, and that him and Zack have been together ever since. But other than that dank, dark story, they actually have a really nice time at the Galaxy of Terra, and they have good conversation, and it's clear that they've become friends now, and that while York doesn't believe that Nick is the killer, you sort of get the understanding that, well, he's gonna have to leave now because the killer has been caught, there's nothing left for him to do. And you can sort of tell that he's trying to bide his time, he's trying to extend his time in Greenvale. He's really hoping for Nick not to be the killer so that he can go back to investigating the case further. And it's sort of interesting, is he actually convinced that Nick isn't the killer, or does he just not want Nick to be the killer so that he can stay in Greenvale? And I think it might be a bit of both. I think the sort of objective way of thinking, the logical way of thinking that York came to Greenvale with, I think Greenvale has taken that from him a bit and made him an emotional man that does follow his instincts. And I think the reason that the wrong man is in jail right now is because that York followed his instincts and lets George put him in jail. And I don't think York completely knows, but I think he suspects that's what's happening.
I had a good time tonight. Good night.
See you tomorrow.
After the two have a nice conversation, listen to some nice music, and have some nice alcoholic drinks, York heads back to his hotel and he goes over the investigation. It's like the last time, it's a bit of a litmus test of making sure that the player can remember the big important plot details, the details related to the crime, before the investigation goes further. As York concludes his report, he gets into bed and then he prepares to nod off and go to Dreamyland and, possibly go visit the Red World. But before he can do that, someone shows up.
Emily? What's going on? Do you know what time it is?
I'm sorry. I couldn't sleep, so I was drinking alone.
I fucking told you they were gonna bang. No, actually not. They just... Emily shows up and they continue their conversation. And they just talk all night about life and about the case. When Emily first moved to town, George asked her out, and she was still in high school, which means that she was still in high school and that George is a creeper man. I mean, I suppose she could have been 18, but I think it's pointed out in another place in the game that Emily moved to Greenvale 10 years ago and she's 26. So George asked her out when she was 16, which is kind of creepy. But I don't think it's supposed to be creepy because it's still weird, and the math also just might be wrong, and Emily might remember things wrong, and that's, I don't know. It was funny to me that that George was a creeper man for like a little short while. She didn't go on the date, by the way. She turned him down, and he seems to have been pining over her for a while, but that it's died down a bit now, and that, you know, they naturally work together and have a great relationship. It's a bit of a formal relationship, but they get along fine now, and there's no awkwardness about the dating thing. She also tells us the story of no, she doesn't. We also, through this conversation, learned that her father works at Wall Street, and that her mother died of cancer. So that's yeah, fucking life, man. It's pretty good. Like, it's all pretty good, and this is a nice way to sort of like wrap off this whole chasing Diane thing. We've been on the tail of Diane since pretty much the beginning, and I think spending a whole chapter just chatting with the team and learning how they feel about things and seeing how their relationship has developed over time is a nice way to sort of like wrap a narrative bow on that chapter. Where do we go from here, right? Like, that's the question. We have someone in jail who we don't believe is the killer, and we've kind of like run out of, but he's the only suspect. We've run out of suspects. We don't really have any other suspects on the list that are, you know, suspects. There are no other interesting people that could have potentially killed her. Not any people that we know of, and it kind of has to be someone that we know of, because Becky heavily implied before she died that it is someone that we know, right? And that's spooky, right? I mean, it's a little bit creepy. So where do we go from here? Who the fuck knows? And to further complicate things, we get a bit of a weird post-credit scene. And I don't know what that is all about. I mean, I do know, because I've played the game, and it makes clear because the scene zone zooms in on sort of like a BDSM thing, so it's obviously related to the cult, and we learn through this scene that Carol is in the cult, and maybe the other person that is also in the scene is the murderer. So maybe, but who is that person, right? Because it doesn't look like anyone we know. Doesn't look like anyone we've met, and we've met pretty much everyone in town, right? So yeah, next time we're gonna wake up at the hotel, and we're gonna see what's what, and we're gonna, I don't know, see what happens. I actually can't remember exactly what happens from this point on, and then pretty much to the ending of the game. It's all a bit muddled and murky for me. Yeah, so it's gonna be very interesting for me as well to see what's gonna happen, and I guess we'll find out tomorrow, right?